Hi, welcome back. So how's your Greek mythology? Student of mythology, know all about it, the Greeks and all the different gods and stories and myths. Well, if you do, then this story will be very familiar. And if you don't, I'll give you a quick synopsis. The story of Icarus and Daedalus. And it's an excellent story. And of course, you know what I'm going to do with the story is I'm going to turn it into an analogy about what? Finance and investing, of course. So here we go. So in the story of Daedalus and Icarus, Daedalus is a very famous inventor. And he somehow manages to really anger the king. And the king takes Daedalus and his son Icarus and throws him in jail. And not just any jail, they put him up on this tower because he knows how smart Daedalus is and he wants to make sure he can't escape. So he puts him up in this tower way up in the sky, and it is guarded and there's no way out. Well, no way out except through the air. So Daedalus and his son set out to invent and design and build wings. They take branches and moss and other stuff and some wax. Wax is a key part of the story. And they fashion these very large wings. And of course, we have to kind of ignore physics a little bit here, but of course the wings allow them to fly. So Icarus and Daedalus are able to escape the tower and their prison by flying away out into the sky. And below them is this huge ocean, which was also part, of course, the way they were to be, I guess, imprisoned. So they fly away, and as they're flying away, Icarus starts to fly too high. Daedalus had warned him, when you fly and you start going, make sure you don't go too fast, too soon. Sounds like a father giving instructions to his son on how to drive his car. But so he gives him all these cautions, especially about flying too high, because if you get too high, you'll get too close to the sun, and the sun will melt the wax on the wings, and you will fall. Well, they start flying, and of course, Icarus ignores those warnings because he is just ecstatic of being able to fly. I mean, how excited would you be if you could fly, right? I mean, that would be amazing. And you probably would forget some cautions that had been given to you. So that's what happened to Icarus. And he flew too high. And once he realized what was happening, that the wax was melting, he started to flap his wings even faster, trying to maintain his altitude. And it made it even worse. And his wings came apart, and he went crashing into the sea and died. There was nothing Daedalus could do to save him at that point. So the, of course, moral of the story is that you have to be careful, you have to be cautious, you need to heed warnings of those more experienced than you are. And of course, this is a wonderful analogy for investing. Because when things are going well, when the stock market's growing, when business is booming, when the general impression of everyone in our culture and in our society is that things are on the up and up and they're growing and everybody's just in a great mood. It's, you know, party like it's 1999. It's easy to overlook, suspend, and ignore the normal precautions you would take. And so this happens not only with investing, but in business. And my caution, of course, is with investing, and we'll get to that. But everybody was affected by this, especially during the mid-2000s when we had that 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, that period of time where we had the housing market unravel, where we had the stock market have one of its largest drops of 37, 38% in 1 year. A lot of businesses folded. A lot of financial advisors had problems and went out of business. And I can relate to this story and very willing to give you some suggestions about this because we dealt with it in our own business. We had made the decision to grow and expand back in 2007. And again, all those things I just described, we were witness to them as well. And things looked good. So we had a lot of demand for our services, and we were like, well, why not bring this to some other markets? So we expanded in a couple of other markets, opened up offices, hired additional staff, and things went great initially, and then all of that junk hit. It wasn't fun. It was very unpleasant. In fact, we had to put the car in reverse. We consolidated to our main location. We closed the offices that we had opened, and we satisfied every obligation. We didn't leave anybody high and dry. We were able to keep most of our staff, and it worked out just fine, but we had to take a different approach. Now, what made that happen? Well, at the time, it seemed like a good idea. Everything was going very well. In hindsight, of course, it's very easy to say, well, you know what, instead of opening several offices, maybe we should have done one and give that some time. Fly gently and not too high so that our wax doesn't melt, right? So the lesson is really clear here that with your investing, you want to be careful not to go all in on any one thing. Don't go too fast too quickly. Don't expect what has happened most recently to always continue. And investors fall prey to this all the time, and I don't mean to laugh. It's not really funny. We look at the most recent period and say, well, the market's been doing pretty well. And then what's the next word that person says? So it's going to go okay then. And that's not necessarily true. And you can't, there's a reason why all the disclaimers on every investment magazine or every brochure you read says, prior performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Ready? Actual results can and will vary because you can't base it on the most recent period. You can look at long-term averages and say, okay, if I invest and I leave it alone for 10 years and I look at historically how things have gone, well, I've got a good shot at making some money. Probably not going to lose over that period of time. You might, but likelihood is not. So when you look at his history, you have to look at it as kind of just a general guideline. But one of the things that a lot of investors also need to keep in mind is that the time period that it takes might be a lot longer than their particular time period or their particular experience. Averages are one thing, but when you're living it and if you had retired in 2007, and many people did, and you expected the market to continue to grow like it had from 2003 to 2007, and you based your retirement, your lifestyle, your income, your financial plans, and all those things on that most recent period, and in the first year you're retired, you have a 38% drop in the market, your wings are coming off. And at that point, if you've built your plans to draw on that money that's invested in that type of stock market approach, then you're going to have a big problem. You're going to probably end up in the ocean and treading water, paddling and hopefully trying to recover. So the lesson here is very important. Be like Daedalus. Don't be like Icarus. Be smart. You can be inventive, but you need to be thoughtful, wise, be experienced. And if you do those things and you pay attention and you're careful with what you do and get advice in areas that you don't know, if you do that, you know what I'm going to say, you can plan stronger.